The other day, I spent a few hours cleaning up garbage at one of my parents' rental properties. I lost track of time and realized I had to go pick up Yogi at school to take him to his soccer practice, so I jumped in my trash-filled truck and headed to the pickup line at school. Then we took a long way to soccer practice so I could stop by the landfill transfer station and dump the trash. After I loaded the address into the phone, I handed it to Yogi to help me navigate. I can have my car do it, but he learns so much about maps and things by helping me this way. We almost missed the turnoff, though, because he had so many questions about the waste transfer station. What is a waste transfer station? Where do the trucks take the trash when they are filled up? What if the landfill gets filled up and there's no more room? And why do people throw away so much stuff anyway? I could answer most of his questions, but since kids are supposed to stay in the car while adults unload the trash, I found a video that explains what a landfill is for him. After I unloaded our truck, I headed to the soccer practice, and while we were on our way, he taught me all the things he had learned on the video. It was a really educational field trip. Hello, I'm your host, Miriam Brown. In addition to my teaching certificate, I have a bachelor's degree in psychology and a master's in curriculum and instruction. I spent the last decade as a public school teacher, and I want to give you insider tips on how to help your child do well at school. Today, I want to talk about how family field trips can help your child academically. After my last episode, I started to get discouraged. I was looking at which kindergarten standards to teach my listeners, and I started to feel frustrated on your behalf. I mean, why should the parents have to teach all these things to their kid? It should be the school's job. It is the school's job, and they do teach this stuff. But in a large group learning setting like a public classroom, they aren't going to be able to make sure that every single kid understands, and some of them fall through the cracks. The kids who have parents that help them at home have an unfair advantage. So I guess my goal is to help every parent I can have that same advantage. But the more I thought about it, I realized that in every grade, there are a few key concepts that if your child knows those really well, the rest is easy enough that they'll be able to pick it up at school. The two things that are really important for kids to know by the end of kindergarten are counting to 100 and reading 3-letter words that have a vowel in the middle and consonants at the beginning and the end. Those CVC words I talked about in the last episode. Those two things take quite a while to learn, but with a lot of practice and help at home, they should be pretty good at it by the end of the year. So today, I wanted to talk about a really fun way to help build your child's comprehension ability, the family field trip. I was talking to one of my friends, who is the principal of Yogi's elementary school, and she told me about a learning disability called reading comprehension deficit. Kids with this disability are really good at sounding out the words and reading fluently, but they really can't understand anything that they're reading. I was fascinated, so of course, I went home to do more research. There are several factors that play into this learning disability, but one of the main interventions they use to help treat this problem is to build the child's vocabulary and to teach them to activate their prior knowledge. In fact, vocabulary plays a large role in any child's reading comprehension. There's a great article in the Journal of Reading Psychology by Reid Smith, Pamela Snow, Tanya Serry, and Lorraine Hammond. It looks at how a child's background knowledge affects their ability to understand what they're reading. When someone reads, their brain first sounds out the letters and tries to connect those sounds to a word or idea that they already know. Your brain actually has a limited capacity in what is called the working memory. When you're trying to create new knowledge, there's only so much you can take in. However, your working memory has a huge capacity for retrieving information that's already stored in your long-term memory. If you can connect what you're reading to something that you already know, it's much, much easier to understand what the text says. Another interesting fact is that some information is more accessible for your brain to be able to retrieve from long-term storage. How vividly you can picture the information plays a large role in how easy it is to remember. That's why helping your child have interesting experiences can be an important way to help them build a large reservoir of memories that they can use to help them understand new information. This is why family field trips can be a powerful way to help them do well in school. As a teacher, I really dreaded field trips. There is so much paperwork, and you have to organize volunteers and buses, and there was always so much chaos and travel time that I felt like the kids really didn't learn very much for the whole day that it took to do the field trip. As a mom, though, family learning adventures have been some of my very best memories with my kids. They don't take very much planning or paperwork, and you can answer their questions immediately and directly. It can create a lot of really interesting conversations, like the one I had with Yogi about waste management. So how do you find good places to take your kids? Sometimes, like the transfer station, it happens by accident. Curious kids will often be really excited by ordinary places they've never been to. Luckily, these days, you don't have to feel like you have to answer all of their questions. Usually when Yogi asks me something I don't know, I hand him my phone and he presses the microphone on my Google widget and asks the phone. When he was younger, he'd find a video, but now he reads the summaries instead. You could also use Google to find places around you to visit. When we lived in the city, it was easy to find museums, aquariums, and zoos. We would buy a family pass to the Children's Museum, and we found out that when we went on road trips, we could stop in cities along the way, and our pass would get us into their museum for free or at a big discount. It was a really fun way to take a break from driving and let the kids burn off some energy. One piece of advice that I have about museums and zoos is to let your child guide you. Kids have a very different learning pace than adults. They will spend forever on one exhibit that they find interesting and just rush past others. If you try to get them to slow down or speed up, they tend to lose interest pretty fast. So don't feel like you have to see everything. Just let their interest and energy levels determine what parts of the museum you learn from. If you let their questions guide you, it also helps make sure it's age appropriate. Now we live in a really small town, but a quick Google search will tell you that even rural areas have a lot of great learning opportunities. We have a very interesting historical site just 10 miles outside of our town, and we live out in the middle of nowhere. And also, when we go to the bigger town to shop, there's a local community college with a small museum. I love to stop in there because it makes running errands more fun, and it's so small that it doesn't take up too much time, sometimes just a half an hour. And it's free. My kids really enjoyed it even more than the McDonald's play place. One of my friends to take her kids to a local farm to pick fruit and learn about where the food comes from. So even in a rural area, there's places to go and learn. Some of my other favorite field trips we went on as a family are national and state parks. They often have little learning centers or signs that we can read to learn something new. My kids love to do the junior ranger activities at national parks. They still do it, even though they're adult. When Evelyn was 7 years old, she earned her first Junior Ranger badge, and she proudly pinned it to her outfit every morning for about a year. One day, I asked her what she wanted to be when she grew up, and she said, "A park ranger, because I'm a Junior Ranger, so I'm already halfway there." But a family field trip can happen even without a car. I used to call these adventures. We could go on a walk around the neighborhood, trying to listen to all the sounds we could hear. Or we could scout around the yard for different bugs. Or if it's winter, we could see if we could follow animal tracks in the snow. The main idea is to talk to your child and help them start noticing and questioning the world around them. Conversations like these help build your child's critical thinking skills. At school, the teachers are the ones asking most of the questions, and they often teach by telling. At home, your child has the opportunity to ask the questions and learn by making their own observations. This can provide those vivid visualizations that can help them retrieve information from their long-term memory. So it's pretty obvious that adventures and family field trips are interesting and fun. But how do they help your child at school? They can build your child's background knowledge and vocabulary, because kids with a bigger vocabulary have a much easier time reading. When they sound out an unfamiliar word, they can compare it to things they already know to help make adjustments. Then they can hold the picture in their mind of what the text is saying so that they can understand what they're reading. If they've never heard the word in the first place, they tend to get really stuck. So the more experiences and conversations you have with your child, the bigger their vocabulary gets and the better they become at thinking critically. So next weekend, or on your child's next break from school, don't let them waste all of their free time on their iPad. Fire up your Googler and find an interesting place nearby to go and have a family field trip, or go on a simple learning adventure in your own neighborhood or your own backyard. I will post some ideas for simple learning adventures on my website, publicschoolsuccess.com. And I will see you next month when I talk about the essential skills for first grade and how you can reinforce them at home. But for now, it's time to put down your phone and go spend time talking with your kid.